Hi, I'm Hunter from ScreenFeed. Today we're going to take a look at getting Power BI reports and dashboards on a screen. There are a few things that you're going to need for this project, and the first thing is a screen. It can be a smart TV, a not so smart TV, a projector, an LED board, a video wall, just some way to display your digital content. The second thing that you're going to need is a player or player software. Some players require additional software, some software have specific players, but either way you'll need some sort of mechanism to play back the content. And in this case we're going to be using a Raspberry Pi and a software called Yodeck. The third thing that we're going to need is Power BI from ScreenFeed. This is an app that allows for your Power BI reports to be translated and put onto a digital signage device like the Raspberry Pi I have here. To get Power BI from ScreenFeed, go to screenfeed.com. Then choose Browse Apps. In the search, type in Power BI and select the Power BI tile. If you scroll down, you'll see an option to subscribe now and one to try it out. Click Try It Out to get a 30-day free trial. Subscribe now subscribes you directly. Both subscriptions require you to have a ScreenFeed account. Once you have your subscription added, you should see under your feeds Power BI. Under Power BI, select Create a Feed. Select your delivery method. Now, we have 3 available delivery methods for Power BI, and these work in a variety of screen orientation and shapes. HTML will give you the ability to have additional playback security added. Plus, it has an animated introduction to the Power BI slides, which show each of your items, your reports or dashboards. Media RSS is an XML framework that has media embedded. Some CMS players work better with Media RSS if there is network stability issues, if your internet goes up and down in your player. And then the last one is direct URL, which is a direct URL that points directly to an image that is hosted on the ScreenFeed servers. So in this example, we're going to choose HTML and we'll scroll down and select our shape. Now the screen behind me is a 16:9 landscape orientation screen. So I'm choosing 16:9. It can scale up to 4K, but the one behind me, for example, is 1080p. The feed will flex to fit that size. If I have a vertical screen, just as a note, I will want my reports to also be laid out vertically. Otherwise, the report will fit horizontal scale to fit inside the vertical screen. It may not look so great. If we scroll in a little further, we're going to say how long do we want each report or dashboard to show, or each item to show. 6 seconds is fine for my purposes here. And then I'm going to sign in with Microsoft. This uses the Microsoft identity of a user who has read access to the reports. So it doesn't have to be the report originator. It doesn't have to be the report owner or the dashboard owner. Just a user in your tenant, your Microsoft tenant, that has access to those reports. This permission needs to be granted by an administrator of your Microsoft tenant. So sometimes that's your IT department, but they should know that it can be scaled to a specific user using Microsoft Entra, and that user only needs read access to the reports. But you would sign in with that user email and password. Once you do, it gives you options in what you can choose. So I'm going to choose my folder of shared reports. I'm going to select reports, and here I'm going to select my usage metrics report. I'm going to click add item to feed, and I can do that again if I want to show it back to back or show other dashboards and reports and add those items to the feed. I can reorder them by using these arrows or remove them by clicking on this X. We have other videos that talk through this player level authentication. Things like device code, bright sign, broad sign specific. So if you're interested in providing some sort of player level authentication, some extra layer of playback security, check out those videos. This is just how to get Power BI on your screen. We're going to name our feed. We'll call this Power BI, and we'll click Create. Now you're given a URL. This URL can be used in a lot of different players. I can copy this URL and put it in my browser and look at my reports just like this. So I'm going to select my feed URL, I'm going to paste it in, and we'll hit go. And now we can see in my Chrome browser, I've got my nice HTML animation, and it will skip over to my Power BI reports. If I have a player, and for this example, that uses maybe it's a lighter weight player, or maybe it's a player that uses an older browser or web engine, I can use this playlist URL. It doesn't have the nice intro animation, but it still is able to present my reports as HTML. I'm actually going to select this one. All right, we've got our URL. Now we need to get it on the screen. In this example, I'm using Yodeck as my software, a Raspberry Pi as my hardware. You can use a variety of softwares and hardware to accomplish the same goal. This is just what I'm using for the example. So what we're going to do is go to yodeck.com and log in. Now, if you don't have a login, you can get started and go through creating an account. When you do, you'll see an account dashboard. So in the account dashboard, it shows us that options here for different players. I can subscribe to an annual plan, pay per month for Yodeck, pay for a year of Yodeck service, and I get a free player. Or if I can directly buy a Yodeck player for $79, or I can add a screen. Now these two come with the software already added, where all I have to do is connect my player to my account using a device code, which I'll show you in a minute. I have my own player, which is a Raspberry Pi. It's already set up, but in this case, I would click on this link and I would see documentation, how to get the player set up. So the basic tenets of it are, I download the firmware from Yodeck, which I've already done, and I unzip that file and I put it on that image on the SD card. They suggest Etcher. My computer for some reason doesn't love Etcher, so you can use something like Raspberry Pi Imager and say that it's a custom OS, which the process would be like this. In my downloads, I've got my Yodeck image. It's unzipped. There it is. And I can go to choose my device. I'm going to select my Raspberry Pi 4. I'm going to choose my operating system, which is use custom. And I'm going to select my image. And then I'm going to choose my storage device. I would hit next. It would go through the process of putting it on the SD card. So once that's done, I'll take that SD card out of my computer and I'll put it into the player, the Raspberry Pi, and we'll take the next step from there when I show you a little bit about the player. If you have already purchased a player, then you don't need to do the put it all together step that I'll show you right now. We've got our Raspberry Pi inside an enclosure. This should look very familiar as far as ports to what they have in Yodeck. And we'll install the micro SD card right here, making sure that the pins match up. It should just slide right in. And we have our ports. So we have a couple USB ports for various controls and network. Now, some of these have Wi-Fi. I prefer to plug in right there. And if we flip it over, we can see the various ports on the side. The first one is power. So let's get it connected to power. Oops. Next, we have our micro HDMI. Now, if we look at a micro HDMI cord, and you're like me where you might have a bunch of different cables floating around, it's important to pay attention because a micro HDMI cable on one end looks very similar to other types of cables that are used for transmitting media. So things like a micro USB. The ends look very similar, or even a mini USB. They can all look very similar, and they're all single way. They all fit only one way into the port. So the best way to look at it and know that it's the micro HDMI cord is to check the other end of the cord and validate that it is in fact an HDMI plug on the other end. So we're going to plug that in. There we go. And power HDMI out to the TV and network. So we'll take the other end of that HDMI and we'll plug it into the TV, and we'll be all set to get our player adopted in Yodeck. Plug in your Raspberry Pi and turn it on, and you'll see a code like this one. So I have right there. I can put that code in. 454-63623, and next, and it will register the player. We'll call this Raspberry Pi, and we'll say we'll choose playlist, and we'll choose simple because that's the default. We'll click OK, and done. So now we can publish our content to this simple playlist and see it on a Raspberry Pi using Yodeck. All right, we have our Yodeck player set up with our Raspberry Pi, and what we're going to do is go in Yodeck to Media on the left here and choose Web Pages. Now here we're going to click Add Web Page. There we are. We're going to paste in our URL from ScreenFeed. I like to do HTTPS, and let's name it Power BI. And we're going to click Proceed to the form. Now it's going to ask us the various settings that we want. So things like auto adjust zoom, we don't need to do that because our feed here will flex to fit the size of the screen. We can set the duration. Let's say we want it to be for 60 seconds. And we can set the refresh interval. There are also some other options here. We'll click Save. So now that we've saved it, let's go to our playlists. Now, Yodeck by default will have a simple playlist and a mixed media playlist. You can add your own. I'm just going to use this simple playlist. I'm going to remove, and we're going to add in our Power BI. Now, I'm going to click Save and push it to my screen. And we'll say yes. Now you may need to go through the other step in your player to make sure that your screen is playing that playlist. So you can see I'm scheduled for simple playlist. If you didn't do that when you set up the screen, you can come back into the screen, and under scheduled content and default content, you can adjust what's scheduled on the screen. So that's it. My Power BI reports are now showing on my screen. If you wanted to make changes, say add a dashboard or an additional report, you can do that by going to screenfeed.com, choosing configure feeds, choose your Power BI feed you already created, edit it, and make those changes. The URL will stay the same. So you do not need to go back through the publication process with Yodeck. It will automatically update on your screen. Beyond that, we have several other videos that talk about authenticating at the player level and adding a little bit of playback security. If you're interested in that, check those out. If you're interested in Yodeck, it's yodeck.com. They're the player I'm using for this example, but they're not the only player that works. with this product. In fact, ScreenFeed is very device agnostic, so we work with a lot of different players out there. If you're interested in ScreenFeed, it's screenfeed.com. We have things like news, sports, weather, not just Power BI, but we also have solutions that connect to your Microsoft identity. Things like Outlook, calendars, LinkedIn, Teams, and then also our Connect platform, which allows you to create your own custom content using Excel online connections. As always, I'm Hunter, and thanks for watching.